Hey guys, so much interesting video on Wild Rifts. They're back with the day 1 builds for all of the ADC champions. Now, of course, a couple of things to cover before we go over these builds. So first up is, obviously these are day 1 builds, so these are just like theory crafting. I haven't played a single game on the patch yet. I've just been doing up all these builds. And of course, likely there'll be multiple changes to multiple builds of these champions, but this is just sort of something for myself and you guys to get started off with. Secondly, don't look at the runes and the spells. I mostly haven't really changed the runes and the spells yet, if they even need any changing. I've only changed the items. And finally, I think that how these builds will change depends on 3 factors. Number 1, how strong Immortal Shield Bow actually is in game. Secondly, how strong the other 2 new items are in game. That being the Collector, as well as Essence Reaver. So a couple of people like Lucian and Xayah, I have Essence Reaver builds for them, and like a couple of champs like Samira and Draven, I do have Collector builds for them, Jhin and MF as well. So whether these builds are good or not kind of depends on how strong these items are, because in an instance where Collector, for example, is a strong item, you probably want to go for it like first or second item. But if it's like weak, you don't want it in your build at all. And it's kind of the same story for something like an Essence Reaver. If it's a strong item, you might go for it like first item, you might go for it like late in the game when there's scaling, etc. Or if it's not a good item, you might not go for it at all. So I'm not going to spend too much time explaining all these builds, because we're going to be doing that when we do updated complete guides on every single one of these ADC champions. I might just talk a little bit about each build, but I'm not going to go in depth item by item or anything like that. This is just meant to be a quick video to get us all off on the right track. So first up, as you guys can see, we have Vayne. So Vayne, I'm relatively certain the first 3 items will be the core. The 4th and 5th item is completely up in the air. I don't know if you want to get 100% crit because of the scaling on Shield Bow, or you want to go for other on-hit items like these on-hit items. And I don't even know if Infinity Edge is a good item on Vayne, because I never really thought that it was. I never really built IE on Vayne because it's mostly true damage. But maybe with a crit build, IE is going to be good on Vayne now. Who knows? We'll have to find out. So of course, it could be possible also that Vayne's on-hit build is still the way to go. Again, we do not know. So after Vayne, we have Jinx. So Jinx has like 2 builds that I've considered. First up involves going for Stormrazor. I don't think Jinx is a Shield Bow kind of champion. Of course, like I said, unless Shield Bow becomes OP, Jinx probably still goes for Stormrazor, but now she goes for like Phantom Dancer as well. And of course, she still needs the Runaan's Hurricane, which gives you like 125% crit. Not really ideal. Maybe this goes and becomes a Maul Reminder. Another kind of thing we gotta solve in this patch is with additional items like Collector and Phantom Dancer that needs to fit into the build. Do you now go for like 125% crit kind of builds, or do you now go for Maul Reminder more often, which is of course still a great item? If you go for Maul Reminder, do you go for it second last item to get penetration faster because you need it, or do you go for it last item so that you get your 100% crit power spike earlier? So these are 2 other questions that we need to sort of answer as we play in the patch and try to figure out where to go with this. Another version of this I think is possible is, for example, if you don't want first item being Shield Bow or Stormrazor. For example, if it's not a Shield Bow champion, if Stormrazor is too weak and you want to fit more items in your build like this, you can actually go for a BF Sword start, and which will eventually build into IE. So I can go BF Sword into Phantom Dancer, and then go for, of course, IE and Runaan's, and then into the LDR and another item. So that could be a possibility as well. Now Jhin, of course, you have like the crit build with Collector, for example. You also, of course, can have a lethality build, which I have not actually updated, but you probably want to add the Collector in here maybe after the Youmuu's Ghostblade. But probably a full lethality build is probably not going to be the best. I think like a half and half build like this is probably going to be good. So maybe replace Edge of Night with the Collector. And next up, we have Kai'Sa, who of course now doesn't need those evolution, doesn't need like item breakpoints for evolutions anymore. You just need completed items. Definitely a Shield Bow champion, but the question is, how good is Phantom Dancer? Because in my opinion, I know a lot of people play Kai'Sa without Runaan's Hurricane, but in my opinion, Runaan's Hurricane is so good on Kai'Sa, and I need to have it in my build. So do I, like for example, if like this Phantom Dancer is bad, do I then go for something like this, where I don't actually need to go for Phantom Dancer? Or if it's a good item, then do I go for something like this, where I again have to overcap on crit? Or do I, of course, trade this off for, of course, going for a Mortal Reminder? So, a lot of questions to be answered. Now, obviously, I don't have the answers, at least not yet. But after testing, we'll, of course, take a look and see, how it goes. So Lucian, I think has like 3 possible builds. First one involves going for Essence Reaver. I interpret Essence Reaver as a first item option. Gives good stats for spellcasters initially and scales better into the late game. I don't think this is like a second last or last crit item kind of deal. I think this is like a first item kind of deal. So you either go for it first or just don't build it at all. So the first build involves going for Essence Reaver. Of course, I think Serelda's Grudge is kind of critical on Lucian because of how it interacts with his ultimate. So you could go for, of course, something like this. And another question on Lucian is, do you want Navori Quick Blades as your last item, or do you want Bloodthirster for the lifesteal? Again, it depends on match to match. And then you, of course, have a Shield Bow build. Like, if Shield Bow is good, maybe Lucian goes for Shield Bow as a first item instead of the Essence Reaver. And the Manamune, of course, just got buffed. So maybe the Manamune build is going to end up becoming the best build on Lucian. We don't know. There's going to be a lot of possible build for Lucian. Now, next we have Tristana. I think Tristana's build is something I'm a little bit more sure of. I think she goes for Shield Bow into Quick Blades, and then, of course, Infinity Edge and LDR and GA. But, of course, if something happens like, for example, if Phantom Dancer becomes OP, maybe you need to fit Phantom Dancer into this build, and it makes, the build up in the air again. So on Xayah, once again, you have a Essence Reaver style build. I think Quick Blades is essential on Xayah, and I think you need to go for it early. But the whole problem with the Essence Reaver build is you don't have any attack speed items in your build at all. Now, of course, you do have Quick Blades in conjunction with Lethal Tempo, so you can get your W up very, very often, and together with a stacking Lethal Tempo will give you enough attack speed later on in the game, like when you hit like 2-3 items onwards. But the early game is going to feel really bad. So maybe you go for like a Shield Bow kind of build where you have a Solari Charge Blade inside the build itself, but you have to go for like IE last item. Or maybe you go for a BF Sword start like the Jinx build, and then you just go for attack speed item being Solari Charge Blade. In my opinion, Charge Blade is going to be better than Phantom Dancer for Xayah because of the fact you have Navori Quick Blades and you can spam spells a lot to prompt your Charge Blade really quickly, and you do get 40% attack speed from this. It is less than 60% you get from the Phantom Dancer when you have it fully stacked, but I still think Charge Blade is going to be better for Xayah. So again, a lot of options for Xayah. Next up, we have Twitch. Now, I think Twitch crit build is probably going to be pretty standard. The question is whether you go for Shield Bow or you go for Storm Razor here, because of course, Twitch isn't exactly someone who loves Shield Bow because he wants to play at the back line, but being an assassin, I think Shield Bow does have some value on him if you go like for a flank play or something like that, which I personally am not a fan of, but I think Shield Bow, considering how it's probably stronger than Phantom Dancer, could be the way to go. Also gives him some lifesteal, and the rest of his build pretty much is going to be similar. Then we have Corki. I think Corki's build doesn't change at all. I don't think he goes for Shield Bow or the new crit items. I think that probably Manamune into Triforce is still going to be the best build, together with Riftmaker, and either going for tanky items or going for other items like Charge Blade, for example. I don't think that Shield Bow is the way to go. Unless it's so OP, maybe Corki goes for a Shield Bow build. So MF with crit, again, that's a version with going for the Collector, and there is, of course, another version where you just straight up start the Collector without going for Shield Bow at all. And of course, if Collector turns out to suck, there's going to be a version without Collector at all. Also, you can have Lethality. Of course, Manamune got buffed into Collector and other Lethality items. And then next up, we have Zeri, who definitely goes for Shield Bow. I think going Shield Bow into Hurricane into IE makes sense, but the issue is your Bloodthirster comes in very, very late. And of course, you want to go for Mortal Reminders to not overcap on crit, or maybe LDR if you do want to overcap on crit. Now, Draven and Samira sort of have the same sort of issue, where if you go for the Collector, your Bloodthirster ends up coming in very, very late. Maybe if Collector is not good, you could go for like Shield Bow into Bloodthirster into IE. This to me, I think is probably going to be the better build. I personally don't expect Collector to be a very strong item, but of course we're going to test it out and we're going to see how it goes. And then after that, we have Ashe. Now, I think Ashe has a possible crit build. I think her main build is still going to be this Manamune build, which of course Manamune got buffed, so it's stronger. But I think a a shield bow build is also possible, like shield bow into Hurricane into IE and LDR could be possible as well, but I don't think it's going to be very good. Varus, I think his build remains completely unchanged. I doubt that he goes Collector. I think the other crit items like Ghost Blade, Serpent's Fang, and Edge of Night are probably still better on Varus. Ezreal's build remains completely unchanged. You don't actually go for anything different on Ezreal, but you do have the Mana Mune buff, which is a slight buff to Ezreal, considering Ezreal already procced on hit on his Q, so it's not a huge buff. So we of course have the Samira Collector build. And of course you do have a version without the Collector. I'm not sure if we have it here. Not that either. So I didn't really do it up yet, but you have a version without the Collector where you of course go like similar to the Draven build. You can go Shield Bow into IEBT or Shield Bow into BT IE and then LDR. Of course, you have to see how strong the Collector is as an item. Now, this is a pretty surprising one, but I think that Caitlyn's build doesn't actually change at all. I think that the Energized build is probably still the best build for Caitlyn. I think that Shield Bow on Caitlyn doesn't make sense. She wants to play front to back. She doesn't care too much about the shield. I think having the burst from the Storm Razor in conjunction with the other Energized items seems to make more sense in my eyes. So I don't actually think Caitlyn's build actually changes at all. And finally, we have Senna. Senna, of course, has very, very flexible build, but I think that the build that gets you to start Mana Mune is going to be the build to go, especially since Mana Mune is now a lot stronger of an item. And Senna has a very flexible build. You can go for a lot of different items, depending on how you want to play her. You can go for, a lot of different items. So it really kind of depends on how you want to play Senna and, how the game goes, etc. So, of course, we'll be taking a look at all of these champions in upcoming guides. But for now, these are going to be the day 1 builds. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.